Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Red for Anfield Index. It's Saturday, the 29th of March, and I don't know if it's just me here. Does it not feel like it's been about 87,000 years since the Reds actually played football, since we actually were able to talk about a game and not contracts, transfers, all the other bits, which are exciting, don't get me wrong, but it'd be nice if that football came back. And I know people are going to start saying, well, the FA Cup's back this weekend, there's a few fixtures on TV, etc. I get all that, but it's not the Reds. And it's not the same, is it? Simple as that. So the quicker we can get back to the football, the happier we will all be. But in the meantime, I'm your normal host, Dave Davis, coming to you from gloomy, cold Edinburgh. So let's see if we can warm all your hearts. Hopefully it is nice wherever you are in the world. And as ever with Daily Red, we'll get into all the latest headlines and bits that are doing the rounds this weekend. And there's only one place to start, really, isn't there? And there's almost been too much talk about a certain player recently, I think, if you're honest, and all the breaking news that's come out this week. But maybe, just maybe, it's something else in an article about that player that has drawn attention. I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, everyone knows what's been going on from the contract front. But Mel Reddy put out an article yesterday, didn't she? And there was quite a lot of detail, information in there. And you do wonder, maybe, and this isn't being derogatory at all, whose ear she had, where she's got that type of information from. But the only two things to really call out on this one for me are there's a bit where it's about the quotes that is given. So let's just read these quotes from said player. Looking back on this era, although City have won more titles than us and have probably been more successful, our trophies will mean more to us and our fan base because of the situations at both clubs financially. I didn't want to be playing for the likes of Bayern Munich. I wanted to be a Liverpool player. Playing for the club I love is more important than any position. Everybody that owns my kit, everybody that owns any Liverpool kit, I owe them something. I owe them my best because I'm one of them. We're family. I don't think you need to say much more on it, do you? I think you'll all have pretty strong thoughts on that, and quite rightly. But it's this line that has maybe drawn more than anything, and I understand this as well. The club knew it would be hypocritical, and this is from the article I'm quoting just in case you can't see me on YouTube, for example, to be annoyed by Alexander-Arnold leaving for Madrid when a good offer would be accepted this summer for Harvey Elliott, a player who turned the Behemoths down because he wanted to call Anfield his home ground. And it's well known, isn't it, that Harvey Elliott, we turned down Real Madrid as a youngster. They tried to, understandably get him, but he wanted to play for Liverpool all along. But it's that line, isn't it? When a good offer would be accepted this summer for Harvey Elliott. Yeah, if you think back to January, people, there were strong rumours, weren't there, of Harvey Elliott? Dortmund were in the mix, Brighton, and a few others. And he scored that deflected goal, if you remember, the one against Lille. And he did the whole, I'm staying here, I'm going nowhere. Now, since then, he's had some key moments, hasn't he? That even when we lost, it was his assist in the Carabao Cup final for Chiesa, great pass. Goals in the Champions League, the PSG one as well. In fact, if you look back to March and the games, which was a pretty disastrous month largely. I know we won against Southampton again. Harvey Elliott played his part there and he got the winner in the Parc des Princes, didn't he, in Paris? It's been a good little period for Harvey Elliott. And yet, you do wonder how much it matters. And I know there's going to be people putting in the chat panel and thinking, no, homegrown, there's a lot of this at stake. We've got to keep him talented. Star boy, I think a lot of people I see calling him on Twitter and social media today. when you look at Harvey Elliott's stats, and someone is also going to scream when you look at FB Ref, per 90 is doing a lot of heavy lifting. I understand that, because if you take away the Carabao and you take away the FA Cup and you look at his major minutes, 16 appearances, yes, in the Premier League and Champions League, and 3 goals and 1 assist, absolutely. But when you add up the minutes in those 2 major competitions, it's about 300. It's tiny, it's minuscule, and you know that will play a part. And moment is probably the word I would use. You think back to those ones I mentioned. You think back to even this season when he comes on against Brentford and slips that pass in, before it ends up being a Nunez finish. There's been moments for Harvey Elliott. But the ultimate question, which you think burning this summer is, and Mel Reddy's the first journalist to actually put this down on a piece of paper. Other journalists have said he may consider his future. She is the first one that said, hold on, they would accept an offer. So you do just wonder a little bit about that more than anything. Yeah? Where does Harvey Elliott's future lie? Now, for me, I think he's a great, talented player. I think he's a quality player, and he could really do so well in a Premier League team. However, does that make him a Liverpool regular? This isn't being derogatory on Harvey at all, but I just don't see it. I just don't see Harvey Elliott, for all his talents, all his abilities, ever being a Liverpool regular. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am completely wrong on this, but we will have to see. Speaking of homegrown players and youngsters, Conor Bradley. This situation has come up, and it's on the AI website today that there's a couple of quotes from it, and there was a great pod the other day between Ben and Lewis, the Academy. Definitely have a listen to that. Honestly, I think it's brilliant. It gives some bits on Rio and Gamoa as well. Don't want to give too many spoiler alerts. But the big thing that Lewis said, and it links to exactly what me and Trev have been saying on the transfer show for the last few weeks. Don't just put this Conor Bradley contract extension as automatically easy. We'll get this sorted. Liverpool fan, boxed off, no probs at all. So and me and Trevor mentioned this on the transfer show. His agent smartly has just pulled back a little bit on this, because there has been an offer on the table, but all indications are, as we said, and then Lewis said as well in the Academy pod, that it's miles away, and they just want to pump the brakes on this. And that's smart business if you're an agent, because now that the news of said player leaving's come in, Conor Bradley, as it stands, you would think, you don't know, and we'll get into this, is going to be the first choice right back. So why would he sign a contract right now? Why would he not, if you're his agent, telling him to say, let's just wait and see what happens. Let's just wait and see who they look to bring in. You're also, Conor Bradley, in a position where you've got 2 years left to go on your deal. Just seems a never-ending cycle, doesn't it? These contract discussions and who we can try and pin down on them. But if you're his agent, it makes sense. Now, I see people putting in the chat panel here like, no, you want to get it to... Of course I want him to stay. Of course I want him to sign. And Red Armchair Supporter makes a good point. Liverpool's consideration, he'll need to prove his fitness before making demands. That's naturally part of the mix with Conor Bradley, isn't it? There's been, for such a young player, a fair few hamstring muscle injuries as well, where there's no proof Conor Bradley in the Premier League or for Liverpool demands can do over, say, 1,500 minutes in a season, is there yet? And I know people will look at other competitions, but if you think of the major ones, the Premier League and the Champions League, yes, there's highlights like smashing into Mbappe. We all love that. But the minutes aren't quite there, are they? So that comes into the mix. And yeah, for a fullback, that you can see his FBref profile if you're on YouTube there. There are a few questions. So that's short term, that's medium term. My honest belief on this, honestly, is that he stays, but his agents played this well and he'll get an uplift. Part of it as well is all the chips are on his side of the table realistically, because Liverpool can't afford to be losing or replacing two fullbacks this summer in the same position, can they? It's also then about short term and a bit longer term. I mean, short term, wouldn't it be good if we got some news that he was possibly available for the derby, but we don't expect it. We've not heard anything about Conor Bradley and that just now, or any availability. You were all suspecting it's Quansah at right back for the derby. We'll have to see. Yeah. And longer term, who's going to be bringing in alongside him? Now, the name that we mentioned, and it was Sam Maguire exclusive to be fair, but others have leaned into it. And we mentioned this on the transfer show, me and Trev as well. Martin, not been pronounced that wrong, Martin Fernandes, the Porto youngster right back. Now, if you're getting a right back like that, as we profiled him on Transfer Market Metrics with Bart's as well, there is an element of, well, he's young, he's got very little sample size. Again, that brings the same questions. I could well see a Tsimikas Robbo style situation plan on the right next season. Bradley and Fernandes, i.e., looking at them sharing, rotating, say 1,500 minutes each. That's really possible to see then, isn't it? Because it would help both build a base, I would think. But you never know for certain if it will definitely be Fernandes. But he does seem to be the hottest name, as we mentioned on the transfer show the other day. But the hottest name that a lot of people like, and I still don't know about this one, is Jeremy Frimpong, the Bayern Munich Dutch international. Doesn't speak too much Dutch, as people keep quoting. There's a lot of sources keen to stress that. Would count as homegrown because of his background at City, and attacking prowess of Frimpong is insane. I mean, his minutes, his metrics, a lot tick that. And if you can see his FB ref, if you can see my screen there, there's so much green when lined up against other fullbacks, isn't there? I mean, there's numerous metrics where he's in the 99th, 98th percentile. Like, his attacking stats against other fullbacks are insane. But here's the big kickers, which you just can't ignore. Most people know Leverkusen play that back three, don't they? He plays right wing back, which predominantly his job is to push on and push on hard. Yeah, make things happen. Absolutely. Completely different system to what we play. Now, I try and rationalise that as best as possible, people. And I think, well, Conor Bradley, when he was on loan at Bolton, he played in a 3-5-2, so he got development in that area, and that could come into it at the same time. However, when you look at Frimpong, I mean, me and Bart's ran this and talked about it on Transfer Market Metrics. His highest defensive percentile is the 35th. I mean, his tackles in the 9th, interceptions in the 3rd. His job isn't to defend predominantly. Now, if you want, like I do, desperately want to keep Mo Salah, and you then think you're one of those who thinks, yeah, Frimpong would be great, who's actually defending on the right-hand side, by the way? Because Mo Salah's role, as we want him to, isn't to do that too much. You know, it's his job to wreak havoc, create, score, the best player in the team, of course it is. So if you've got Frimpong bombing on, you're almost going to destroy Dominic Szoboszlai and Konate. Those muscles are going to get tested galore, isn't it? And I get he's a popular player, and people have also flagged this, right? Red Armchair Supporter there says, I've heard he can cover left back, which would also be handy. Yeah, I get people are a fan of this, but I'm just struggling to see it unless Salah departs, which no one wants at all. That's the only way I see this happening. Helior Matthias there saying, much of this hype around transfers I usually don't pay attention to, but as soon as a Dutch player's mentioned, I'm all ears. And yeah, maybe that could become part of it. A lot of people have made that greeting, didn't he, that he gave to other players. Who knows? But I just struggle to see it. And John Summers there saying, what is a fair price for Harvey, in your opinion? I can well see Harvey being sold there, John. For me, I think 40 million upwards. I think add-ons you could well see being in a Harvey Elliott deal or a sell-on, something like that. But it's difficult to give an exact figure, John. But 40, I think, brings Liverpool to the table at least, and it works upwards from there. Let's put it that way. So that would be the main one. The other players we talked about that are being mentioned, and you see them, Jonathan David. Free transfer. A lot of clubs like this player. The Canadian international scored goals galore and netted against us. And if you think, people will say, yeah, he gets goals in Ligue 1, but it's a farmers league. I understand. But back in the Champions League, hasn't he? Lille did all right this season. Got 7, scored against us. He does know where the net is. When you look at his profile, and again, we've got it here against Diogo Jota. Jota being the red, David the blue there. The only reason, or the only area I should say, sorry, really outshines him in it is defensive element and pass completion, which isn't the 99th percentile, but he only makes an average of 24 a game. The one thing you would say is David knows where the net is, doesn't he? He scores goals. For me, honestly, I just believe that he'll end up at another Premier League club. Because if you think, if we got Jonathan David, I could see him being on the plan like an elite 9 and him, but a second choice almost. And would he want that where he would start for a lot of other Premier League clubs? So that's probably the stake I would put in that one. And there was another name me and Trev mentioned on the transfer show, an attacker that we know Liverpool have looked at. So yeah, I won't give too much there. But yeah, those are your big links realistically. On the official website and other places, and I'm just a little bit hopeful. Maybe it's reading too much into this, but there's a bit of a Salah loving. Don't mind it at all, by the way. Do not mind it one little bit. Okay? Looking for a second Playmaker award. And if you've just looked at Liverpool's timeline recently, there's a few things for Mo, isn't there? Just in terms of shots, goals, and then also mentioning like where he sits in the golden boot and the races. They put out a few tweets as well in the last few days around, all time and what he's chasing. Maybe I'm reaching here, but we've all seen the stories or rumours, whatever you want to call them, from Egypt that way. And we're all just that little bit hopeful. And before Everton comes, maybe this is completely fanciful and completely unrealistic. I get this, but you won't mind. You'd love to hear some good news around Mo Salah. But if anyone saw it at the same time, we'll get in trouble if we show it officially because we'll get copyright from Adidas, etc. And Greg and Eddie would batter me. But if you look at some of the coverage from Adidas and on Mo Salah's official site, there's some great videos there. Honestly, he went and spent time with, I think it's Sefton Young Ladies Club and different age groups. Brilliant. Well worth watching. I just can't put it on YouTube because of all the copyright potential issues that way. That's all I can say on that. And then the final bit, which we always talk to you about, AI content. Now, you can see on the screen, there are various links, various transfer articles that are well worth a read and well worth a dive into. YouTube, we have got you covered galore. It was Chat G&G the other night, so well worth a watch. They gave the thoughts on the contracts, everything that's going on at the moment. Me and Trev also did the transfer show where we talked names, we talked contracts, we talked links that we got from various sources. If you haven't watched that so far, I blow my own trumpet, but well worth a watch that way. And the other big call outs, me and Bart's did transfer market metrics. So Liam Delap, Martin Fernandez, we ran a full profile on the player that we mentioned there, who's liked, and another whose name I won't give because a bit of a nerd signing, as we called him, that's been heavily linked in recent times. Just worth watching. Other things to say as well that are on the website. April preview. So we gave a few predictions on Red Alert of where we stand. Mentioned that one, probably the must-watch for me of the week. Young Ben, Young Lewis talking about the academy, also mentioning that Conor Bradley story, but at the same time, other players like Gamoa and other young talents. Coming up as well, it's going to be a busy week. No two ways about it. It's all going to stem into the derby, isn't it? God, it'd be nice if there was just some positive stories at the same time. But that is where we currently stand on Saturday, the 29th of March. Enjoy your weekend, people. Enjoy that bit of downtime before the madness starts again, because that was another Daily Red for Anfield Index.